Well, one thing about a cemetery, it pretty much have a lot of history in it if you just take time to go out and study it. Because the headstone says a lot. And if you want to find out about a person, you have an idea, putting a headstone up, it can tell you a lot about your family history, as well as the history of the community. It says a lot, and it tells you the history of the way you maintain a place. It tells you the history of that community by the appearance of it. This is a place where when you're living, you have a voice, but once you're dead, you don't have a voice. And if you love a person the way you say you love them, once they're dead, you also love them. And the way to show that you love them is maintaining your burial plots, because it's very important to maintain it, because if you don't do it, no one else is. What's going on here today is the state have come in and help preserve headstones that has been left unattended by family members down through the years.
My personal connection is, this is all I know. I was born in this area, right down the road from here, in fact. And my father attended this church. My mother attended Pinesville. And so once they married, then she became a part of this church. So this neighborhood has been in my life all the days of my life. And my parents are buried here, my grandparents are buried here, and I have a great grandfather that was buried here. And uncles and aunts. I have an uncle that was in World War I. So this is home. Everything is sacred. If you would take a broader look into something, it may not be to this person, but it is to someone. And so I think they need to take that under consideration by educating the community and the families that are, what you have is important.
And when I wrote my book, in the book that's called Alachua County, Florida, when I wrote that book, I had gone to all 7 cemeteries and I located 28 enslaved women and men. Mr. Thomas Rawlings was born, I believe, in 1884. And from 1884 to 1865, I was able to locate 28 Black pioneers. St. Joseph is the oldest community in Alachua County, the oldest. And of course, they were brought to Archer also by slave masters. It is all rooted in enslavement. However, when we buried our people, we buried them in the same cemetery. Most of these cemeteries were originated at a church. Okay, in Pinesville, I am responsible for that sign, that road sign that says Pinesville, because after I done my research and presented it to Bill Power, then people got interested. Where is Pinesville? They had never heard of Pinesville. And when I did my research at Pinesville, that was my second site I researched, because when I was in high school, they closed the school in Pinesville. And the children from that area, from the St. Peter Pinesville area, migrated 3 or 4 miles to Archer High School, Archer Negro Public School, where I attended. And I knew if the kids came from there, I knew there must have been a church there. And it was.
In this cemetery, I have my great-grandmother and grandfather, both sides of my family. My mother and my father is buried here. Have a lot of aunts and uncles and cousins that are here now. And maybe, hopefully one day this will be my final resting place as well. This site is the home of some of the most amazing people that I would probably ever meet in my lifetime. These people's names were never up in neon lights, but they don't have to be up in neon lights to be amazing people. These are the people here that has taught us great work ethics. I know you probably heard that saying that can make $1 out of 15 cents. These are the people right here that coined that phrase. They took what they had and they made it work. And they taught us how to work. They taught us how to love one another. And they taught us the sense of what real community is supposed to be. And so it is very special to me because I can always come out here and reminisce and share memories, as I was just a few minutes ago, sharing some memories of some of the people that are out here. And that's what makes this place a very, very special place to me. I think one of the biggest threats outside of big business is people who are sitting in places and high places and seats that has no real sense of what this community means to us, what it's all about, and they are making decisions that shapes us, but doesn't know anything about this community. You cannot get the sense of a community by just taking a drive through a few minutes and determining, oh, well, these people here are not close people, they're not, which is absolutely false. And I think that's the part of the problem is big business now is coming into areas that once was never attracted to them. Now it's very attractive because they're running out of space in other places. And so they come in with big ideas and flashing a few dollars, and people who are sitting in places to make those decisions are making decisions that affects us, and it has nothing to do with them. They don't live in this community, they know anything about the community. And so I think that's one of the biggest threats that we face here. Keep up with the changing laws so you'll know what's in effect and what's not in effect. And the most part about it is get involved, get it out there, let people know where these places are and what you are doing to preserve them.
Our family history is buried here. My grandmother, grandfather, my dad, I have sisters, my mom. So this has been our family cemetery since I can remember. My grandfather was born out here in 1901, and his mother was born out here during the latter part of slavery. So, you know, they're all here. Talk to your elders. Listen to what they're saying. Record it, write it down, because that's a wealth of knowledge. And sometimes they don't want to talk about the history. They don't want to talk about the past because it's so painful. But it's important for the younger generations to know this history moving forward, because as you can see, there's laws that are being discussed and things written into laws to try to not talk about it or erase it. So it's like you move forward in one respect and then you move backwards in another. But if communities stick together and continue these dialogues about the community, about the history of the community, how rich that community history is, to preserve it, that's, I think, that's the most important thing that we could ever do.
My personal connection to this sacred place is my elders, my mom, my dad, my granddaddy, his mom, and it goes way back. And I'm sitting beside my husband's grave for 56 years, and our son is next to him. And then my dad is right in the other aisle, Aaron Rollins. And my granddad, that was born in 1890 and died in 1984. He fought in World War I. And all of those sacred people has been planted in this area. So it's very sacred to me, not only them, but so many other relatives. Who knows what's next? Somebody is trying to plan. I don't know, but I hope it's nothing that will harm our sacred place and let our loved ones rest in peace and not disturb it.
I would like the general public to know that these places are special because of just, society, because of how slavery kind of didn't allow for the history of enslaved people and their descendants to be documented, that if you can find a place where the families are still here several generations later, that's special. I would like the general public to know, one, we're here. You know, there's a little place called Archer, Pinesville, St. Peter neighborhood that are descendants of slaves, and we're still here. We're still contributing to society. We're still loving and honoring our relatives. I think that's something that, one, I would like the general public to know, the state of Florida to know, our local area to know. But then also, how can we preserve and conserve these areas? Community members here, there's different family members of mine that are here, and that's what we're here doing today. And we hope to continue these types of events because it's good to reflect on where we came from and also to help. They're important, history is important, so it's important to preserve these.
I would say because all I ever known was this cemetery. This is my home. I live in the back in the back of the cemetery here. And this is my home, and this is where all my family is funeralized. So I would say it's a special touch to me. I love it. I enjoy coming out in the cemetery and looking and try to help keep it up. To me, it's a lovely community. We all get along together real close out here and loving. And whenever anybody need anything, the people are here to assist and help you. And Gainesville, Archer, St. Peter, all the communities are just together. Whenever anything happens, they are there for each other, to assist each other.
So my personal connection to this place is, like I stated, I'm the great-great-granddaughter of Major Reddick, who owned the property here. And there was a church. He was the pastor of the church, and he gave the land to the community for a community cemetery. And my property is adjacent as well to the cemetery. Especially in the last, I would say, maybe 10 years, we've done lots of cleanups. We now have UF and other people helping to preserve the history. We have a website. We're getting ready to do a fence around the property. We have information. So we're doing what we can to preserve it.
In the past, I've been with some African Americans when they see their ancestors' grave for the first time. It's a very emotional experience. So, and there's a reason for that emotion. Finding these places and preserving these places and telling the stories of these people is something that's very important to understanding our history. African American cemeteries were not on the Florida Master Site File. And I had been to enough FPAN crypt workshops and conferences to know that that's kind of like the first step, puts them on the radar screen so developers and others will know the cemetery is there if there's no visible grave markers left. What I was thinking in terms of the Truth and Reconciliation, we need to identify all of these cemeteries and make sure that they all get put on the Florida Master Site File. Having the cemetery where your ancestors are buried preserved, I think it anchors people. Give them a sense of roots and where they came from.
First of all, I'd like to say that my sister, Clyde Williams, who is the founder of the BMECRO, she recently passed, of course, started the maintenance on the cemetery. So she wrote me a letter and she asked if I would take over the project, reorganize it, raise funds to maintain it. And this is what I'm doing. And I intend to carry out those goals because It meant a lot to her, and it means a lot to me. Then the other connection that I have with the cemetery is that I have grandfather, grandmother, great-grandmother, great-great-great-grandfather, who is Albert McKinney. And Albert was born in 1829. He served or worked on the cottonwood plantation, the Yulee plantation. And he was a blacksmith for that plantation, as well as blowing the ham's horn 3 times a day for the slaves to get up and get off and that sort of thing. A long time ago, if you really think about this place, this cemetery was established in 1875. So when you really think about this place, there were a lot of Black people who tried to keep it going and maintain it. And this is the reason why the contractors and other developers didn't come in here and scoop us up like they did in Tampa and build buildings and whatever they do. They just couldn't just walk in here and take over without going through some of those freed slaves. And by the way, the freed slaves are the ones who built the church here, the BMEC, in 1875. So, and I don't think a lot of people here really know that all these slaves are here. And this is why it's so important for everybody to try to protect this and preserve it. There's a saying, you've got to know where you've come from in order to move forward. And that's what we need to do in Archer.